can't play until you buy the Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Coming to you live in Technicolor from the beautiful Hollywood Hills, California. The show where the total retail price of their advice is $0. This is Timelines Talks. Featuring guest musical performers, Metallica frontman, oh my, it's Stars and Garters. Also featuring, hey buddy, you're a tier 9. Look out, it's Automaton 2000. And now, from Spreadsheet City, here's your host, Captain Idol.
Hello, and welcome. Oh, hang on. That one. No, not that one. That one. Why is there a big S in the screen? Oh, where have I gone? Okay, I am the voice of Skype now, apparently. Where has my stream gone? Oh, no. What has happened?
No.
Why has this happened? Hang on. Let me just try. Hang on. That one, then that one. No. Okay, apparently I'm a big disembodied S now. Hello, DB strikes again. Yes, thank you, Twitch. Oh, I don't know why that's happening. Hang on, let me open Skype. Where's the call? Go to call. Does that work? Aha, now I am tiny. Let me make myself bigger. Yes, we are here.
On the air, live technical assistance.
Seamless. No one noticed. Right. Guys, I'm going to start the stream now. Are you ready? Okay?
I'm ready. How about you?
I thought I was. Right. Anyway, hello. Welcome, guys, to Timelines Talk, your weekly source of all things Star Trek timelines related. Joined with me always are Automaton 2000 and Stars and Garters. Say hello, guys. How are you doing?
Hello, guys. How are you doing?
Oh, you like my son?
Well. The universal translator seems to be breaking down for you over there.
It does.
You know,
it happens.
Not a lot of people know this, but I actually sing that intro live every single week, so my throat is a little bit...
It's very true. I'm amazed how you get it spot on every time.
And it sounds the same every time. It's amazing, the consistency.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Well, I watched those old the Spoken Rocket Man by Captain Kirk, where he's smoking a cigarette and...
I took a plane mid-flight, and I'm gonna be
I'm a rock.
Hi. Cool. Anyway, so welcome to the show. We've got a lot of talk about this week. Actually, a lot more than we thought, didn't we? As we were sort of compiling our pre-show notes, we realised, oh gosh, there's a lot going on this week. To start with, I have the very sad news that a dear friend of Star Trek itself, Mr. Richard Hurd, has unfortunately passed away yesterday through complications. He is known most of all to us Star Trek fans as Admiral Owen Paris. He also played a small part in, well, I say quite a large part in the TNG episode Birthright. He was also known for a few other things in the science fiction world, including Commander John in V, and he was also in Seinfeld and TJ Hooker, but we are sort of very unfortunately sad to see him go. I think you've got a little bit more to say on the Birthright episode, Otto.
Yeah, I actually just watched it today when I had heard the news, and it is a great episode, in no small part because of him. And hopefully we get some characters from that episode, because I really want to recap the whole thing and Klingon full style. So, but if you don't know the episode, the very short version, I'm going to sneak in an episode recap on you guys. The very short version is Worf hears a rumor. This is a TNG episode that his father is in a Romulan prison camp. And so he goes to break him out and discovers that his father's not there, but other older Klingons are from a battle 20 some odd years ago. So these Klingons living under Romulan rule have sort of become broken down old warriors, and they have accepted their fate. But their children are still around, and Worf wants to remind them of where they come from. So there's a scene where Worf has taken one of the young men out to talk on a hunt, and they can smell the scent of their prey on the wind, and they're getting all amped up, blood flowing Klingon style. So they're all sitting around the table eating, and Talk kicks the door, and he has some skinned goat or sheep or some kind of big animal, and he sets it down on the table and he starts lecturing everyone. We've forgotten where we come from. There's a song that they would sing as a lullaby. Ya Jacques, and he says it's a war song.
No, come on!
Fire streaks the heavens, and he's getting everyone all amped up, and they start singing as a group. And the camera pans over to Liqueur, who again is this old, broken, defeated man who's given up. 23 years ago he arrived, and you see him start to mouth the words because nothing rouses the blood like Klingon battle and song. And so he's great throughout the episode, but I think of that and the subtlety with which he performed that role. So if you haven't seen it yet, it's a two-parter. We're in season 6. Go watch it.
Definitely one of my favorites. I think we do need the full song at some point, auto as well. I think that's your homework assignment for next week.
Yes, it occurred to me today. They use it as a lullaby, but they don't realize it's a battle song. But it's in Klingon. If you're Klingon singing in Klingon, how do you not know "Fire Streaks the Heaven" and you're singing that to your little newborn? So.
Yeah, Rockabye Baby is about a child falling to its.
Untitled Chapter.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, no, we're very sad to see Richard Hurd go, and hopefully his memory will not be forgotten.
Yeah, so far he's only got the one card in game as Admiral Owen Paris.
Yes. Which we will talk about now, actually. Shall we have a quick mention on Mr. Owen, seeing as might as well play tribute to who he is and how he represents in the game?
Yeah, so good old Thomas Eugene Paris's father, and I believe they clarified that the Commodore in Star Trek Beyond is his great-grandfather.
Oh,
so,
really?
Because she's Commodore Paris, and I think Simon Pegg, who's a massive nerd, was like, no, yeah, that's Tom Paris's and Owen Paris's ancestor, which is a nice little connection. So I think this particular version of Owen Paris comes from Pathfinder, which is, I think, like a season 5 or season 6 Voyager episode.
He was in a couple as well. I think he was in...
Yeah, he was in a good few. He was in the finale as well, because obviously they get back to Earth, and he's there. He's like, hey, man, how you doing? It was a bit more formal than that, obviously. It wasn't just, hey, man, how you doing? I'm over to Earth, we're missing you. But this is particular one from Pathfinder, where it's, it's all the story about Barclay getting into communication with Voyager using... I'm sure it's some kind of related to a wormhole shenanigans.
It was the Hirogen Network, wasn't it? Something like that.
That's the original one. Yeah. And they have to come up with a more consistent way of doing it because the Hirogen are like, stop using ours, get off our lawn! And then Seven has to electrocute one of them, and Taurus is like, nice. These are many episodes, they're all blending together, don't worry about it. But this, I remember particularly, I think almost the scene that the arc comes from, because Barclay's like, there's like 150 people stranded on the other side of the galaxy. And he's like, yeah, one of them is my son, and I happen to care very much about it. Please don't act like I don't care. And Barclay basically has to walk away with his tail tucked between his legs, because, you don't go and tell the Admiral that you don't care about his son. Not an amazing card. By all metrics, command sec psi, I believe, but a decent early game gauntlet use, a few odd traits like pilot, which I don't quite get where that comes from, but I think he debuted in the pilot mega, so
I think
he must have taught his son Thomas.
He took him out in the old shuttle over the plains of wherever they lived and was like, hey son, take the stick. Maybe.
Actually, one of my favorite impressions he made on Star Trek as a whole was actually not with him. Stars and I were talking about the episode, I think it's called 30 Days.
Yeah.
Voyager episode where Tom does something illegal and gets thrown in the brig.
He gets demoted.
And one of the first things he does is write to his father to explain what happened, because he doesn't want him to think less of him without hearing his side of the story. So I think that's a nice touch that they added in.
Yeah, because the thing is that with Tom Paris' arc over the entirety of Voyager, Owen is a really important character, and even though you can kind of get the impression that he's a bit of a dick from the way that Tom talks about him, he was had tons of expectations heaped upon him from an early age, very strict, very you're a Starfleet family person, you will go into Starfleet and become this person. Even though Tom wasn't in the end suited for that, even though you heard all this, it still came across as a kind of a grounded, reasonable admiral, one of the better admirals we've ever had on Star Trek, and he genuinely cared and did love his son. Even if he didn't have a picture of him, but a picture of Nicholas Locarno on his desk, we'll forgive him that, because they are very similar-looking men.
How long have you kept that one in the holster?
Hey, man. It's a great one.
Yeah.
So yeah, the actual card itself is not amazing, but like I'm sure like a lot of like early game players got a lot of use out of him, and it's just a fun card to have. I kind of hope we get another variant down the line, but you know,
Just
even if we only
that,
get the one, it's still
waiting for the Admirals event, really, aren't we? For all the
Cartwright's time to shine.
Will that be ever? Anyway, rest in peace, Mr. Richard Hurd. Okay, let's move on. How do I get rid of you? There we go. Sorry, not. That's very poor taste. I'm so sorry. Let's move on. Let's have a chat about the recent thing that hit our inbox recently, which was the June's player choice for new crew, where I don't know if they actually specified in the email whether that was going to be for a pack or for an event, but we were given a choice. We were given a choice over their 4 crew upcoming that they are interested in putting into the game. The 4 crew were Dinesh from Femme Fatales, Outpost Vina for Survivalist, Sulu and Gertrude for Plant People, and Homestead Janeway for Scientists. So it's an interesting... I don't know. I'd say I've played a year and a half, and I can't recall off the top of the head whether we've had a straight survey. I know it's been done previous. Like there has been some sort of player's choice for the COP Archer and Picard event, who you'd want for that.
Think in terms for event stuff like mega events and that, as you mentioned, the COP stuff, but in terms of like straight I think it was for choosing a pack, because these are pack themes. I don't think we've ever had that before. It was a bit of an interesting thing to ask.
Yeah. Who would you want in the game?
I realized after voting that if this ends up being a 6-pack or a Tuesday pack or whatever, I'll never see them. I'm like, I should have put it in reverse order. Maybe
they might.
Put the next on top.
I did say, if you like the original series, go for Vina, or go for Sulu and Gertrude. If you're interested in some more main cast, and if you're just plain horny, just go for Dinesh. Complete the
man, Sulu and that plant there, mate, that does it for me.
Cornucopias.
So just to clarify for people who may have been confused as to who some of these characters were when they opened that email, Dinesh is from the absolutely awful episode Bound from Enterprise, which is, hey, what makes men horny? Green women. Let's find out the origin of that particular Starfleet cautionary tale.
Now, hold on, because Enterprise was the king of replaying themes and episodes from other series. So this was Mudd's Women, from the original series. True, so they had to reincarnate that, as well as the Borg and everything else.
We do already have Maras and the other one.
Navarre. Played by Miss Baden, who also is Irina in game.
One of your favorite cards, I think.
I couldn't not forget that.
So yeah, that's Dinesh. I'm sure she'll be an amazing card if she ever comes out. Outpost Vina is going to be our 4th variant of Vina, I believe, after Orion, Pining, and Rigel 7. I imagine it's going to be her in the slightly ripped shirt and like the very bleach blonde kind of hairstyle, which, if you're into that kind of 60s woman, I can totally understand voting for her. Bit of a bombshell. And then we've got Sulu and Gertrude. I had to look up who Gertrude was, and apparently it's the plant from the Man Trap.
This plant.
Shame.
Yes. Guess what? I'm gonna drop some truth on you. I've watched every episode of Star Trek that isn't TOS and TAS.
Don't worry, I didn't know who Gertrude was either. So.
No. Well, apparently it's funny that they put Sulu and Gertrude as in the Sulu and a plant when there is a conversation in the episode about what they want to name the plant. So it's like they should have had Sulu and Gertrude / the other name. I feel like that would have been.
Name?
Oh, it's like something ridiculous, like Filterwiki or whatever the hell. I was looking at it and like these are the kind of conversations they had on the NCC 1701. Amazing. And
then Janeway.
Homestead Janeway. I was confused as to who this even would be.
I think a lot of...
I initially thought it could be someone from Workforce, when like everyone's brainwashed and working on that alien planet, but I think Auto put me right on this, and he has a theory as to what they mean.
Well, they were talking about it in Discord today. So if you were there, which most of our lovely viewers are from, man, I don't remember the episode name, but it's the one where Janeway and Chakotay pick up this virus.
Resolutions.
And they can't, resolutions, and they can't figure out how to extinguish it. So they send Voyager to continue on home. Those two plop down on an alien planet and try to solve this themselves. So I would imagine something like science for her, maybe some medical. I think she studies the indigenous animals too. And if we get her, I'm crossing my fingers, we had Hot Tub Chakotay too. That might be my favorite character who's not in the game.
That might be too hot for TV. Also, are you sure this is an episode of Voyager and not just some fanfic you wrote?
Both, actually.
Both. Okay, yeah, they were happy to achieve your submission back in 1996.
No, that's for the Patreon supporters. If you support an additional tier, you'll get Otto's fanfic.
Yeah, no, it's printed and bound, and printing errors and everything.
What you guys are missing, not subscribing.
Yeah, no, actual access to collector's items right here, right now.
There's actually a life-size stuffed model of Auto for everyone to get in the post. Yes.
All you do is you squeeze it and it says revenge. Woo!
I'm like the Pillsbury Doughboy. Woohoo! You put me in the belly. All right, enough of that.
Yes. Anyway, moving on. So that's the player's choice, which is a bit of an unusual thing to see, but hopefully a little bit of maybe we'll be getting a bit more player input as we have been the last year. Moving on. Sorry, go on.
Yeah.
Please.
I was going to mention it was a very bare survey. It's a case of rank these things, and then would you recommend Star Trek Timelines? And it's sort of a case of
It's very much, what do you rate of your employer? It's confidential.
Yeah, I love it.
It's great. It's great. It's fine. I wouldn't recommend it to any of my friends because they're not as they don't.
Yeah,
know
no, this is a very niche thing that I can't really talk. I can talk to you guys about, obviously, but I can't exactly walk up to someone at work who is playing football and be like, "Hey, do you want to play the Star Trek mobile game?"
I have had a friend of mine who I've known for quite a long time come over to me and go, "What are you doing all these spreadsheets for?" I'm like, because I want to. And he goes, "Yeah, but what's it for?" Stuff. I'm not telling you.
You should have just said it was like for porn, and that would have been less embarrassing.
Okay, now to be fair, I think Star Trek has become getting back a little bit in vogue, if I can use that reference and sound hip, because we have all these new shows coming up. Quentin Tarantino is in the news for maybe directing a Star Trek movie, so it's not totally lame, guys, I swear.
I don't know. It sounds pretty lame to me.
Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's go. Something we neglected to talk about last week, which we should have, was the actually having a little bit of a UI change in the game, which is actually having two deals on the screen at the same time and being able to flick between them quite easily. Now, for the VIP Zero crowd, this is like, yeah, whatever. But like for some of us that have kind of won a little bit of the option and how we use our dilithium, it's or how we gain dilithium. It's a little bit of interesting fact that they would offer, here's the big £50 pack or $50 pack, and here's the littler one. So it's interesting to see how they've brought that in, and a little bit of sort of streamlining of the UI changes.
Yeah, especially because I don't know if how aware our audience might be. I imagine if they're in the Discord, they're relatively clued in. But the game was recently acquired by a different company and it's like a different developer, and it seems like this is a slightly faster pace of quality of life change than we've seen in the past. Like, how long has it been that we've been wanting a new ship menu? Oh, we've suddenly got it now. Yeah. How long have we been wanting skipping animations for ship battles? Oh, we've got it now. And it's like these are nice little. It's a nice pace for it. And as you say, like if you're VIP Zero, you don't give a single flying toss about the fact that you can flick through offers. But for me personally, like I took 2 bites on the 10 for 10s. I got a pretty good ratio of 4 golds out of the 20, which is like astounding luck. And then I was able to just flick through. And one of the other things that was interesting was that they ran it for a few days, as I recall. Yes. It was like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, they are extending the offers a little longer.
Which is good and bad, because it's good because it reduces the, oh gosh, this is going to go away soon, impulse buy, but bad because you keep seeing it, you keep thinking, No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Now, if we could only combine the speed up option with the pop up option and speed through the pop ups, then we're getting somewhere.
I feel like that's the only other thing that I would actually want added is a case of like back in the day. I'm sure you young kiddies don't remember, but there used to be an awful pack off, which I'm pretty sure this is like the third time I've mentioned it on
Is
this.
it Falcon Falls? Because
No, I was
Delete
gonna
that
make mention
pack.
of Sail the Starry Skies, that awful schematics offer where it was like $8.99 for like board cube schematics, which you get from Darbo every day anyway for like 5,000 credits. So why
Pretty
would
sure
you
we know
even-
some people that would take that.
that was the Peanuts comic. I got a rock holding the bag. You know?
Yeah, a little bit. And it was a case of whenever that would pop up, you'd go, oh, and you'd wish you could just like get rid of it forever. So what I would personally like is if I see an offer I don't care for and I don't want to see it popping up every time I have to relaunch the game, I would like dismiss, do not show me this particular advert again. And I feel like that would also be useful for the developers as well because they could more accurately catalog who is actually interested in this offer versus who isn't.
Don't hold your breath on that one.
I will not hold my breath. I would turn a very entertaining shade of blue, but that's the only other kind of thing I can see UI-wise that would be nice to have.
And one other tiny UI change, well, not quite a UI change. I think it's new. They are putting links embedded in the mail that they send out. So for the survey yesterday, and then I think event notes today, you can click that little thing, and then your phone will ask you for permission, for browser permission, and I just hit back, and then.
Which is interesting because I think a lot of there's a fair amount of the people who play the game, the sort of they just stay in the game and they stay in universal chat, and it's interesting that they don't put the links to the stats straight into the email. They force people to go out, so maybe that's a conscious decision to enable the community to interact, possibly.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, no, it is a nice little UI change. Like I think that previously when they had to ask you for the surveys at mega events, they had to like just put you a link or say go to the DB forums and you would vote there. So actually having a direct link is a nice little bit.
Yeah, copying in the URL one letter at a time.
I know older people who probably do.
Is this a / or a backslash? I always forget.
Don't you be surprised.
HTTPS?
As someone that puts the link to this stream in about 3 or 4 different Discords every week, I'm just like, is it forward or backslash? I should know this. Too reliant on just tapping. Yeah. Anyway, so yes, UI changed this week, something a little different. Hopefully, progress to a little bit of what we've thought of as stagnation in the game. Hopefully, a little bit of forward progress. So, moving forward, one quick mention, the Voyager cast had an interesting stream this week, didn't they? They had a sort of a little bit... I haven't watched it myself yet, I'm planning to, but they all got together on a stream and had a little chat.
Yeah, I watched it this morning, and it was pretty entertaining. They're doing a lot of celebrities these days with the prevailing circumstances are doing streams from home and interacting and sort of fundraising that way. So this was a fundraiser for the Actors Guild. And if you want to know more, they talk about it in the video. It's up on YouTube. We'll try to include a link if we can. But yeah, it was good. They had pretty much everyone from the main cast there rotating in and out and asking questions and discussing stuff. I think it was just over an hour. And it had me almost on the floor laughing at one point. So it was entertaining. It's worth a watch.
Yeah. Cool. So I thought we'd give a quick mention of that. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the juicy details. Let's talk about the next event, the Galaxy event coming up, featuring Kate and Kira from Far Beyond the Stars and the Gredneblog, our favourite packlet, coming from Samaritan Snare, the Season 2 episode. Let's have a quick chat. I say a quick chat, it probably takes about 5 hours. Let's have a bit of a chat about Kay Eaton. And what she means. She's a bit of an interesting one, really, just of what she represents with the skill set. Please, guys, tell us more.
So as someone who wrote a note in the book, I feel qualified to tell you that I'm quite excited for it, not just because like it scratches that little itch which I mentioned before, which is the case of if you can get a character that is the only version of that character with a skill, like the only Kira with a psi base, or the only Kirk with an Eng base, or any of this kind of thing, it scratches a little thing behind my ear, and it's always lovely. And it's like, I think this Kira is the number 7 psi base at the moment, and it's like, while this skill set is wildly overpopulated, not for Kira. And, you know, if you've managed to miss out on someone like Tnarvik or Popcard or any of these recent Mega Crew, she would be a decent filler in for that. She's not going to break, you know, she doesn't break the world for anyone. I wouldn't recommend anyone, you know, break their computer screen going for her, because in the end, she is just another side the command, which is incredibly common nowadays, even more so among 5-stars. But I don't know, like she's a decent event piece. Like if you're looking, you know, if you're looking for a reason to justify having Kira going with some nice like ready tea, then by all means go for her, because like she's going to be useful to you at some point down the road. It's just a case of she's not going to be an event powerhouse, I don't think. And again, Voyages, she's merely okay.
Yeah, I'll hit one high and one low, and the high being contradictory to what my esteemed colleague just mentioned. I think she might be really great for events, because we're looking back, getting back into the game a couple of weeks ago. I updated all my event tracking and such, because it's just so much fun. And Kira, the character, her variant events by year, starting in 2016, go 4 events in 2016, 4 events, 1 event, 4 events, and then 3 already this year. So she may hit 4 again. She's really one of the most consistent event names in the game. And like Star said, having the only Psi. When I first heard the characters coming out, I thought, ooh, Bajorn, there's no Bajorns with science. We've had 2 Bajorn events. We might get a Mega. It turns out she doesn't get that. Like her magazine colleague, Herbert Rossoff, doesn't get Ferengi, even though he's a Quark variant. So that's the high. She should perform very well for faction shuttles, even if you only get 1 or 2 seats. Top 10 Psi base, only Kira with Psi. Now, the downside is if you have the snapshot of the spreadsheet you can put up there. We were talking a lot about skill set, and someone asked, I think DC Pilot, prior number 2 event almost winner, great guy, was asking about skill sets. And Kira's
there we go.
Psi Dip Command, I think in that order, is actually becoming very, very bloated. Psi Command used to be on the rare side, and it's nowhere near that now. But even with a Psi primary, she shares a skill order with 2 previous Megas, Picard at number 1 and Sirach. At least the first one most people should have. And then if you look at the skill set as a whole, you also bring in Tenavik, Time Lord Tenavik, and I think Mamba Picard is in there, a former giveaway crew.
Yeah.
Who else did I have on there?
Well, it's actually
Scrooge Data campaign crew, and then a lot of event crew. Riker Odan was recent. Psi Officer Spock, I think second half of last year or halfway point. New Eden Pike, same thing. So she does have quite a lot of competition, and her being of middling for new crew rank in the 70s, you would have to really add a lot of stars to bring her up to competing with these other crew who you get usually several of their stars at a time and sometimes for free.
Yeah. Well, it's actually funny you mentioned she would have been the only Bajoran with Psi. It's actually incorrect. Prophet Sarah Cisco has...
I'm sorry, I meant number 1.
Yeah. She would have been the new number 1, but yeah, because she doesn't have that trait, that's kind of why I'm a bit down on her event future, just because...
Shut up, Otto, you moron!
That is the thing, because she doesn't have a Bajoran trait, and I think Bajoran Mega is one of the more likely Megas to have down the road, it does hurt her future prospects, because her other traits are not good. There's communicator, writer, resourceful, and it's like, it's not human Starfleet Federation, but it's nowhere near good.
Our colleague Big Large, who's it? I'm terrible at talking tonight. What is me?
Big, Mick,
large, huge. There we go. Big, large, Mick. What you? That guy, our colleague, who I can't pronounce because his name escapes me, says Solar Sails Cisco also.
Yeah. There you go.
Happy meal of the week.
I think there's 4 Bajoran crew with Psi, but she would have been number 1 with that being her primary.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah.
But yeah, as it is, like, she's good crew. I'm personally gonna be shooting for her, and I'll be happy to have her, especially because the art is just like, it's just nice and happy and wholesome. She's really happy with her tea. But it's just a case of she's not gonna like light anyone's world on fire, and I wouldn't blame you for taking the week off if if our other wonderful crew doesn't strike fancy.
Lovely segue. I like your work. So, moving on, let's have a chat about our... I think I've been waiting for this guy to come into the game for a while, just purely because I want to see what DB have done with them, and I think it's the most appropriate character to stats we have seen in a game yet. So we're talking about, and I'll bring him up here, Greb. Oh, let's get rid of that. Hang on. There we go. Greb Nedlog, the Packlid from the Season 2 episode Samaritan Snare. I won't go too much into the episode here because I think we all know what it's from. It's from the one where the Enterprise drops Picard and Wesley off in a shuttle to go off and have a nice chat about tea and women, and then Riker completely fluffs up, gives away his chief engineer to a bunch of idiots who then outsmart him and give us phrases like "make it go" and "our ship is broken." And my favourite line in the whole thing, if I can just find it here, is just like, she's armed.
If it isn't Wesley's...
No, it's that, but it's also Geordie saying, your ship, it's armed to the teeth. And I think it's either Greb Neglog or Reginald just turns around and said, teeth are for chewing. Makes me,
if we're not going to do the whole episode, we got to at least do the quotes because I wrote a few down.
Go on, please.
And the episode is a gold mine.
Oh, it's so good.
Well, when they first run across the ship, Geordie says, "Let me guess, their rubber band broke."
I do like there's the classic one from Wesley. Hang on, I've got a big. You know which one I'm gonna say, and it goes, Picard and Wesley. Picard's just pretty much blanked Wesley, walked into the back of the shuttlecraft, and Wesley follows him, and they're eating, Picard's drinking coffee. He's drinking a cup of coffee out of character, early seasons, who knows, and cucumber sandwiches, and they're talking about, Picard is like, I've never had time for marriage or children, and Wesley just comes out with, where women are concerned, I'm in complete control. And you're just like, really? But the whole episode is just dick jokes the entire time. It's at the start of the episode, it's Picard and Pulaski, and they're talking to each other, and Pulaski's just like, you need operation on your, and he's just like, we're not going to talk about it. Don't talk to the crew. And then halfway through their episode, you're just like, oh, his heart. Oh, there, I see what you did there. But yes, that's kind of the A plot, is Picard's sort of heart transplant. And in the background is Riker just going, how are they doing this?
How could they have won?
You talking trash about me?
Sorry, Picard.
I think the two things I pulled, because me and Otto watched the episode as well, just like, because it seemed appropriate. And two things I sort of took away from it. Number one was, wow, Picard, you're really gonna just take this entire side thing on a shuttle with Wesley just so that Pulaski doesn't have to operate on your heart? Isn't that a bit of a round trip? But whatever. He's Picard. He gets to do whatever he wants. You can't criticize the man. Number two, however, is that it just reminded me that Riker has this incredible character flaw, and I think it's hilarious. And it's that Riker is absolutely incapable of fighting a square fight. Every single time he gets into a ship battle, he always has to come up with the most overcomplicated plan possible, rather than just firing phasers. And it comes through even worse here than in one of the other most egregious examples, because it's like, oh man, the Packlids have got Geordie, even though we shouldn't have let him beam over. We could have beamed over Sonia Gomez, for God's sake.
And in fact, Worf makes a very good point. He goes, should we really be sending our chief engineer? And Riker's just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, who gives a fuck? Yeah, it's like, pardon my French.
Stars and I were watching this episode together, so we watched this all unfold chronologically. And first, Riker completely ignores his chief of security's advice, which we're like, okay, Picard does it all the time, whatever. And then the empath comes on board, and she's like, they're completely untrustworthy. He's like, no, we'll send Geordie over anyway. And then Geordie's trying to blink SOS while he's on the ship, and Riker's like, just finish up. You're doing okay, and we'll bring you back afterwards. So not his best spin as the CO of the ship.
Yeah, because after the Packlids have revealed that they're not quite as dumb as they look, he comes up with this incredible plan to blow hydrogen out to the Basard collectors and send out a crimson force field or whatever the bloody thing is. And it's like a case of, Riker, you could have just fired phasers. You could have just fired phasers. And it just brought to mind the fact that in the end, the Enterprise D one day is going to be sat on Viridian 3, cracked in two, because Riker, instead of just firing phasers at a 20-year-old bird of prey, decides, no, I need to trigger their cloaking device with a ridiculous MacGuffin. Data, do that. Worf, don't fire. And it's just ridiculous. But you know what?
Are you okay, Stars? You need to talk to someone, maybe?
Riker's so dumb. He's so dumb.
There's a lot of... There's one last thing that sort of got me was the last sort of final of the act. You know, Picard's in surgery and he's lying there, and it's a routine procedure. It's perfectly fine, but there are complications because why would you need some other drama? And one of the lines, you know, it's a very cheesy, sort of very late 80s medical procedure. It's like, I can't stop the heterocyclic degradation. We need a biological physiologist in here.
I'm sorry, but that actor is amazing.
This guy knew going in he was going to have 8 lines, and his agent is like, look, man, you have this many lines. You better make everyone, this man is going to die. And it's quite on his face.
It's quite funny because we go from, we need a molecular physiologist in here, and then it flicks to the Packlids who go, make us strong, and then it goes back to capillary integrity, too unstable to make an insect.
Yeah, they were cutting like every other line.
Oh, God.
So we're definitely not recapping this episode.
No, we're not. We're just brief mention. Anyway, the crew himself, and a question I just saw in the chat from Prime Lorca was... where his engineering proficiency ranks among the super rares. I can't tell you his proficiency straight up, but his base is the lowest engineering base super rare in the game, but that is...
I'm pretty sure it makes Colonel Carr look like Geordie LaForge.
He is... Where are we? Colonel Carr, he is... Yeah, he's bottom. But then he is his tertiary.
Last week I gave you all the trivia about GI Chakotay having the lowest base of any super rare. And so, DB, since I know you're listening to this, give me Hot Top Chakotay, goddammit. So they went and gave Gred Nedlog, whose name we've all practiced before the show, the lowest base of any super rare.
You certainly did, I didn't.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious. And it's like, sometimes the stats don't always dovetail with what a character is like in the show, you know, because sometimes it's like, hey, look, you know, we're gonna make Picard #1, a man and his dog, the #1 side base. Like, okay, whatever. But then sometimes they nail it, and you know, I think it's like an engineering proficiency of 6 to 12.
Yeah, it's tiny.
Yeah.
Yes,
as a card, otherwise he's about what a Packlet should be.
He has a pretty good attack boost. It's +9 at 6 seconds, which I believe the only other super rares who have that are Sarek, the disco version, who I think lasts for 8 seconds, and then Mira Burnham +9, she lasts for 10 seconds. So he doesn't quite measure up, but if you don't have a fused legendary for attack, he can be pretty good. He's in a galaxy, so you'll get that 4-star for free. Yeah. And then he has a pretty good dip base with a couple untapped traits like Criminal and Thief. And basically at this point, I mean, who knows what DB is going to do in regards to events, but they seem to be cycling through all sorts of these off-the-wall traits. So if you can get traits with low bonus pools, like 20, 30, 40 crew that have it, just start collecting those, and I'm sure sooner or later it's going to pay off.
Yeah, especially because, like, well, that was the thing when we were looking at Gremlin Log, was the fact that not only has he got, like, I think it's like a number 11 dip base, and not only has he got these oddball traits, but I was looking through the pools on the Vault, and it's a case of, these are not crews that have a lot of dip bases. If there were ever to be a Criminal or Thief Mega, you would use him in probably your first line of shuttles, just because, you know, it's mostly command or eng or one of these other skills. So it's a case of, it's worth having a look at your roster and thinking not just what oddball traits have I got here, but also what are these like skill sets in terms of these traits, and like how do those two correlate to each other.
Yeah.
So absolutely worth grabbing. You know, it's a case of, even if you're a newer player, you're going to get used out of that base. You're going to get used to that attack boost in arena. You'll probably end up freezing him before long. And if you're a more established roster, it's a case of use them for the event and then into the freezer, maybe never to be seen again. But the simple fact of the matter is, you never know. I don't think anyone of us could have called a pilot mega of 2 years ago.
I think even with people like him and Braxton in the previous week, there will be shuttle use down the road eventually, depending on the trait. And I think it's worth considering. I think he's a little bit more useful than Braxton, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah, good old Vagrant Braxton, the true hoss. He's got a side base.
Should we have a quick chat about our existing crew this week for bonuses for people that get nearly at 1,500? Professor Scott. Oh, I disabled my scanner. Let's put that back on. Scan that man. Computer. Make me some transparent aluminum.
Hello, computer.
Yeah.
Best scene ever.
How quaint. And then he starts off doing the chicken peck, and then he goes into full Hollywood hacker style. I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
QWERTY.
It's QWERTY. Oh, right. This whole thing.
Can you imagine if it was in the future we use AZERTY?
Yeah. It's Dvorak now.
So our existing crew is the inimitable Professor Scott from Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. As Idle said, one of the single best scenes that Star Trek has ever given us. So if you haven't seen it, chances are you're locked down. Go and watch it. Why not?
It's the only film I can watch with my family because it's the least nerdy.
Nerdy.
I
don't know. Double dumbass on you is pretty nerdy.
No, I'm from Iowa. I only work in outer space.
Exactly.
Smooth Kirk.
There's a bus, there's a whale. What else do you need?
Yeah, exactly. So an actual Scotty event. These are incredibly rare. And it's actually funny that they chose Professor Scott for this, because I actually wrote a column, a very infrequent column, on the Star Trek timeline subreddit about unappreciated crew. That often have either terrible or really bad variants, or who don't have 5-star variants at all. And the very first one I wrote about was Scotty. This was pre-TOS Mega, before he actually had Tribble Herder, before there was Claymore, before you actually had decent Scotty variants. And Professor Scott I actually singled out as this is a card that should be good but isn't. Because he had a decent Eng base at the time. I think he was a top 10 base at the time. He has some instant damage on ships. He has some decent traits like Prodigy and Undercover Operative, things that seem like he should. And he's a main cast character. You would think that he would be more useful, but it never ended up quite panning out. So actually seeing him get some event use is nice, as is the recent uptick in Scotty events. I think we're up to 6 character events if we're counting the TOS Mega. Yeah.
If you count the Mega, it'd be 7, I believe.
It is 7, yes.
So it's just nice to see the original Miracle Worker get a bit of love. That being said, Otto did mention to me, all of these events have been Galaxy, so that in space is not that much use to you unless he is a featured character. But even still, it gives me a nice warm feeling in my belly,
The first 20 months, he didn't have any events. And then I think we had 1 in 18, 1 in 19, and 2. This is already the second one this year. So exponential growth tells us that in 2024, he will have a bonus every single week. So hang on to your Professor Scott's.
And that is reliable mathematics, and you can absolutely quote Otto on that. If you don't, you are allowed to prosecute.
Hey, this is how we do the big book, guys. We take past stats and we just extrapolate. So
yeah, no, it's all scientific. It can't be called into question.
Quick question from the chat from Prime Lorca. Are there any bonus crew with Psi Primary this week, or is Professor Scott going to get all of the missions?
Let's see, what's the pool this week? It's Thief,
Paris, Thief, and Thief with science would be Labor Spock, 1200. Mir Zephram Cochrane, Phenom, Arixun, Dareth, and Bounty Hunter Mud. So those are some pretty esoteric crew. You may not have most of them, but Labor Spock, if you have them even at 1 star, will probably do the trick.
And it's Paris events. I think is Krenim guest Paris? I think he's Dip.
No, he's Dip Command Eng.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. No, not very many side crew actually. Now I think about it.
Yeah, Scott is the other bonus crew.
Well, I guess you're hinting
Much
your
tapping
hopes
of keyboards going on here. Have we found a new avenue of discussion? Have we found the weakness?
Yeah, if you don't have thief science, then you're rolling with Professor Scott.
It's
sure.
quite a small trait, to be fair. There's not.
Yeah,
many
what is
with
it? Like a report, like maybe 20 crew. It's very interesting that they're picking on these smaller ones after going with so many big ones. Like, like Pilot and Romantic were massive, and now Thief is one of the smaller pools I think there is, apart from some of the more obscure racial traits.
And yet we're still waiting for our Brat event. Come on, Q Junior started it. Where is it? Come on.
We haven't talked too much about event preparation. I think we're going to kind of make that its own show because there's a lot to cover. But in Galaxy, especially, in case like this in Galaxy where you get one of the crew for free, if you really don't have anyone to cover a skill, and you get that community reward crew, you can collect them, sort of level them up as the days go on, and then use it near the end on maybe Sunday night or Monday to do most of your crafting, and that will save you a few super rare crit tokens.
Definitely. Just a quick one on our notes. You wanted to talk about Labour Kirk and DF Paris.
Yes, Labour Kirk and Delta Flight Paris got a bonus last week and this week, and this is the third bonus week in a row for Captain Proton Paris. So if you shelled out 120 some odd hollow programs to build them, this is your chance to shine.
That's a lot. It is a hard build.
Yeah,
but the thing is, they like throwing this crew in there. It's like, not necessarily the best of crew. Like 1701 Jadzia Dex has God knows how many features, and like Dark Age McCoy, I think is the single most featured legendary in the game, and they're not amazing crew. But depending on where you are at the game, it doesn't really matter whether or not they're amazing. If they can put in the work for you, you're gonna appreciate them.
It was the best of crew. It was the blurst of crew. You stupid monkeys. That reference is for you, Gary.
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed it.
It won't be long before a full-blown Simpsons podcast.
Honestly, stop horror.
Well, would you play a Simpsons equivalent of Star Trek Timelines? I think I would.
I would only accept that if like Patty or Selma was like the number one command. That would be my one stipulation.
Would Homer Simpson be the Gred Neblog?
Yes, absolute ass proficiencies at everything, but he would be Med Sci Eng, but he had terrible stats. That's
Tier 1, Old Gil.
See, Old Gil would be like a dip 1 skiller, but he'd be the number 1 dip base, and he'd be like 1,000 points better than everyone else.
Well, so Mo, being a bartender, has to be dip med, right? That's like a requirement.
Absolutely.
Oh, we can have an episode on this. This is April Fool's. This is Simpsons.
Okay, sweet. I'm dancing.
From the chat, Vojorgoman says, Mr. Plow variant has to be number 1 in something. That name again is Mr. Plow. Right, moving on.
Yeah,
Let's talk about... Let's save
please,
that. I'm going to write that down because that needs to be done. Let's talk about...
If we ever get a character played by a Simpsons voice actor, that's a hard lock.
Ooh.
There must be someone.
They're getting on a bit now, aren't they?
Well, we do have a Family Guy voice actor.
We do, yes.
Who is in Star Trek, so...
Vincent Rivers, yeah.
Ricky.
We're getting closer.
He should be featured. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about our Tuesday pack this week, featuring the very cute Archer and Porthos. Look at them, aren't they adorable? And let me pop them up on the stream now rather than just... Wow, Christ, hang on. There we go. And yes, rather than waxing lyrical about them, there's Archer and Porthos. Isn't that cute? A nice little moment from the Riser episode, which I can't remember right now because I forgot to note it, but here they are.
It's not a great episode. It's 2 days and 2 nights. The highlights are Trip and Reed getting stripped naked.
Ooh, now I remember that.
Yeah, actually... All I have to do is mention male nudity and Auto just perks right up.
So to speak.
Yeah, so to speak. And Archer's entire B plot is about like some spy is trying to get in on him, and it's like, oh look, is it going to be a romance? No, it's just a spy.
Yeah.
And I think they bond over their dogs. I think that's a thing.
Wait, so we do have 5-star Tourist Trip or Tourist Tucker. I think they changed his name. He's from that episode, right? And then the 4-star Tourist Reed.
Yeah.
And technically, injured mountain climbing Mayweather would be from the same one. If we get hibernating flocks, I believe we would have a full set.
God bless you for watching Enterprise, because I don't remember anything past like the first episode.
It's my cross to bear.
I remember the first half of the first season. I remember the Zindi season, and that's it.
Season 4 is the best season.
If I remember right.
Season 4 is great. It starts getting going. I get so into it, and then they drop that steaming pile on you as the last episode.
What are you talking about? The last episode is Terra Prime. There's no last episode.
That's right. Well, that was not great.
It's like those Matrix sequels they never made.
But anyway, getting back on the topic. So, new crew.
Yes.
With a nice little puppy to make the fact that his stats and overall image is boring. I'm going to come out and say he's boring.
Well, you have Humbled Archer already, who's a crew who's basically better in almost every way. His base is... No, we did calculate this because we were going back and forth on his value. His base is 0.0015% better than Archer and Porthos. So if you're a min-maxer, that's good to keep in mind. He's got the better skill set. He's got a little bit of gauntlet play if you're a newer player. And his voyage rank, I think, is exactly 1 rank above his. So if you have him already fused, this is not like a Kirk or a Dax or a Burnham where you need to collect as many variants as you can to stuff the shuttles. This guy gets like 1.5 events per year. If you see an event count any higher, it's probably because he has the pilot trait and they picked up 5. So
yeah, that's true.
His surface level ranks aren't bad. Dip base 3, which will make plenty of shuttles even without a bonus, and then I think he's like right around 50 for voyages. So he's okay, but there's nothing outstanding about him, and that skill set is killer.
Yeah, especially since we've had some real humdingers the last few weeks. Like we had Sinister Picard, and we had the Time Paris. Same skill set, I'm sure they're in slightly different orders, but the fact of the matter is those two were way better voyagers and have much better event futures than any Archer could possibly hope to have. Yeah. So if you're getting this Archer, you're primarily getting him for the art, I feel. Mm-hmm. Which, or
because of the pack he comes from.
Yes, this is true. So this pack is actually amazing, I feel.
Who do you want to cover first? Because there's a couple of big hitters in here. Shall we go for the biggest? Shall we talk about the King of Kings, essentially?
The original, the OG, as it were, the OG 7.
What about the Queen of Queens, though?
Which way do you want to go? Let's talk about Gary 7. Here he is. Yeah. Let's start with probably the most sought-after crew in the entire game, and first time talking about a tier 1 crew. And yes, he is available in the pack, and I've seen many posts on the Discord of people going for him, spending a lot and going, I'm going to just pull a few more. Oh no, I haven't got him. Oh no, I got Archer. Oh, I was going for Gary. It's Gary 7.
I mean, it's just what else is there to say about it? He is the ultimate stud, the ultimate man. I'm going to throw a bomb into the room, as it were, and I'm going to say I think he is slightly overrated. Just because I cannot stand using him in Gauntlet. I find him really unreliable there. I'm sure that's my bad luck, but I'm just going to come out and say it. Throwing a bomb in the room. Everything else, absolutely amazing. Like incredible, excellent base power, the single best XI Voyager in the world, but I do not like his use of Ilium.
I think it's the first time I've seen Auto stunned to silence.
There you go. I'm sure he's building up all kinds of reasons why I'm wrong.
I already have the stockpile. I don't need to think about it.
Right, guys, sit down for a while. Here we go.
Well, this kind of dovetails with the question that we have later on, and thing about what features you would improve. And the fact of the matter is, I hate Gauntlet. I hate Gauntlet the worst of any feature in the entire game.
Yep.
And if we're going to get into conversations about it, everyone's experience in Gauntlet is completely subjective. My experience in Gauntlet is that Gary 7 sucks. You'd think he's more reliable than he is, but the fact of the matter is I have had way more luck with someone like Awaiting Burnham or Armus than I've ever had with Gary 7. I'm sure that's my personal experience, but I can't possibly take away his base power or his voyage ranks.
First to serve, Auto.
I got to get my jokes in while I can. We were going to do a quick recap of Far Beyond the Stars, during which Benny Russell is is so excited. He's a writer in the story. He's so excited that he's getting his magazine story printed at 3 cents a word. Now, if I made 3 cents a word, if Stars made 3 cents a word for the big book, we wouldn't need the payment we're getting for this show. That's all I'm going to say. Now, on to Gary Seven. He has, before we get to the card, he's come from some really great packs, which I think is notable. When he premiered in 2018, mid-2018, he was in a pack with Gangster Spock, who was far more formidable 2 years ago, who you would only need 1 star of, and then Protomorphosis Barclay, who was Voyager 30-something. He had 2 big bases, which was fairly rare for back then. I remember pulling in and striking out on him, which is the extent of my whining. And then he came back later in the year in a pack with Imprinted Archer, who has a great med-eng skill set, and Tribble Herder Scotty, who, even though he's in the portal now, I think he debuted as a top 10 Eng Voyager. We're like, finally, a good Scotty. And then now this pack that he's in, even if you're not in love with Archer, Archer is a good enough crew, and we have Miss Puppies herself to talk about next. So the stats, I find him plenty competent in Gauntlet. He may not be an auto-include. I think he only has 1 skill set that hits 45%, which I think is like Resourceful, Section 31, and something else.
Yeah, Undercover Operative, I think is that.
That's right, Undercover Operative. But for someone who, this is my 4th account now, I can't afford to keep buying Kalis every time. He gives you a good enough command sec role that there's always, you don't really have walls of command sec crew. Now, Dipsai, sure, you get Locutus everywhere. Anything with Eng, you get Caretaker everywhere. But I find the command sec, there's not always so many walls. So I can usually find one guy who Gary Seven's roles can beat. And then Sexai, if you don't have, say, Burnham, or if you want to stack up, if it's a featured skill or whatever, I find him good enough. Now, he's not spectacular, but he's maybe in that tier 2, 2.5 of Gauntlet tiers for me personally. So I really like him there. And then I've said enough last week about his Voyage potential. So, a 6-pack may not be the best place to go for him, especially since he's already in the portal, but he is a very great crew if you're not a big event hog.
Yeah, and as you've said, if you're going to take a shot at any of the 6-packs, this is probably the one to do it, because sidestepping Amanda for a moment, the 4 stars in this pack are not terrible. Like, yes. B4 is like a pretty competent Voyager. Doesn't really count. He's not going to get a lot of event work. He doesn't count as a variant of Law or of Data, but he's competent enough. He'll get you out of trouble. Lucero is a excellent Voyager. Like, whether or not Disco Crew will continue to get the same Voyager, same bonuses and events, is unsure.
Does and she have the Disco tag?
Yes,
she does.
Yeah,
okay,
because she's on a short trek.
Yeah.
And of course we have Trader Odo, who's probably the weakest link in the pack, I'd say, because even though he's main cast variant, he's just a 2-skiller. But if you need 2-skillers for events, and I think he also counts for Timelines Originals, even though he shouldn't.
Does he?
I don't believe so.
I think
Let me
that's
just double check. I remember someone in there who didn't count when they should have.
There's Army, what's this? Hang on, sorry, I'm just booting up a game now.
Well, I think the TLDR for this pack is there are no stinkers.
No.
And I do hear Trader Odo talked up quite a bit for a pretty good dip base. So I think he has the best Odo security as well, which is curious because he's the security chief. But anyway, he's basically a good card.
We've lost stars, I think.
At least 4 shuttles.
Yeah, we've lost stars temporarily.
We get sucked into the void again.
I think so. Oh, hang on. This has messed up all my layouts.
Apologies for that.
That's all right.
Yeah, I guess the Trader Odo is a perfectly Todo make him sound so much worse than he is. Todo.
God bless the rains down in Bajor. That's all I got to say.
So let's have a chat about the other wonder horse in this fight, in this race, is Amanda Rogers, fan favourite episode from...
the original Miss Q, if you will.
Original Miss Q, indeed. Q Who Knew, indeed.
Q Who How Now Brown Cow?
Are we doing a Dr. Seuss episode at some point?
Yes.
I feel like we could do it.
It's a good episode.
If we get a 5-star version of Travis and Flotter, I'm sure we could work on. I'm sure.
Why would you speak such a thing into existence? Why would you let that exit your mouth?
Look, I'm not saying I want it to happen, man. I want it.
Rogers punches above her weight class on voyages for sure. I could probably get a supercut of all the posts and statements made by people who said, yeah, I added a few stars to her after the event because I like the character or whatever, and she's making tons of voyages, which even as a side primary, they may not be the ideal order. The power is still good enough for that skill set that she'll make runs for you if you star her up.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you haven't locked into a copy of like Leonardo da Vinci, or you didn't manage to snag a copy of Torpedo Surgeon McCoy, this skill set is worth grabbing in almost any way it comes. Like even like Loken, who I think we were quite down on, like, and is in a different order. If you can get any bit of Eng Med, it will last you for a while, and the more options you get, the better. Like you're never gonna feel like you wasted citations on an Eng Med crew most of the time. Like even someone who's down in doldrums, like in Voyages, like Temporal Prisoner Chakotay, that's still the only 5-star version of Chakotay. They have enduring value.
And if I could say a word about her traits too, she came to us in that Q continuum / scoundrel mega. Now, when that happened, they gave John Delancey's variants his own invisible tag, and then they gave us the Q continuum tag. So does that mean that they are maybe on the back burner going to do more Q events down the line? Maybe. Exobiology has already grabbed 2 event bonuses. Romantic last week had a bonus, and Prodigy is another one of those, a little esoteric, but it's in the right number of bonus crew range that if you see that one, don't be shocked. So with a top 10 side base, she could certainly pop up unexpectedly.
Cool. Okay, I think that wraps up this week's Tuesday pack. Come back next week to see who else is going to drop for us. Okay, so let's have a brief chat about one of the interesting new things that's come up in the last week, which is the birthday pack. Now, we've had sort of birthday sort of Tuesday packs before, sort of celebrating various crew. But now we're actually getting sort of for the wonderful price of 1,500 dilithium. And I think we briefly touched... Did we touch on this last week? I think we might have. Was it?
I think
when
we
it
were
was
talking about the
We did the Phlox one.
Yeah, it was the Phlox one. Well, this week we had the Saru pack, and now it seems like they're going to do this a bit more regularly. So let's have a talk about the Saru pack, which is different to the Phlox pack in that it has 2 legendaries and a super rare, which is a little bit contentious.
Yeah, it's mostly the fact that it's an immediate downgrade in quality, which I'm never a fan of. Because in case if you go from 3 golds, all of which have their own place and their own value, to 2 golds and a purple, and you can easily make the argument, and it's a worthwhile argument to make that they have to fill space. I'm sure there's some probably like a hard coded limit of you can't have a 2-person gold, but it's a case of you even if you never pick that 4-star version, it's still a case of it's a loss in quality in my mind, because why would you ever pick that? So it's essentially not an option in my mind.
Well, now, does that automatically disqualify actors who only have... Saru only has 2 golds, so does that automatically disqualify them? Or would you still like to see those kind of packs, even if one of them you know that you wouldn't spend 1,500 for?
I think maybe it's...
I think because it is a case of you get an automatic gold, it's not like a traditional pack where you get a chance at one of the 3. It's still a case of, even if you only have, like, say, someone like... Yeah, say someone like Mayweather, for example. If you had like a birthday pack for them and it was just a case of, oh, here's like injured mountain climbing Mayweather and 2 4-star variants like Mirror and Tuskegee, I would probably pull on that because I want that gold Mayweather. And for me, that would have good value, even if it's 2 purples, which could be potentially the way we're going if we're looking at this in a kind of a market research thing, which seems like what they're doing.
In like 5 weeks, it's going to be all common crew. You have to pay 1,500 for it.
Slowly just going down.
Yeah, pay 1,500 for these 3 1-stars. And that's the for me. While I'm looking at this, I'm down on it a little bit because it is a downgrade in quality. The fact of the matter is, like all packs, it depends on the quality of the crew on offer. Last week those Phloxes are all good value for money. Especially for 1,500 dill as a guaranteed pick. These Sarus are a little bit less useful. Like Viharo Saru is like a decent dip med, but he's nothing particularly special. Away Team Saru is a good Sky Voyager, but that's only good because there's very few of those in the actual game. and the 4-star is the 4-star, which is whatever. But if they end up, like they say, doing that Mayweather pack down the line, and it's injured mountain climbing Mayweather, which is Command Edge Med, I will take that, and I will not complain, and I'll be happy about it, because if you're chasing a particular white horse and you can have a chance at a guaranteed get at that white horse, that's worth it.
Funny you should mention Mayweather, because I have a list of the birthdays in June. I think this has been compiled thanks to Travis McLean on the forums, who has fantastically, along with a few others, compiled a complete list of everyone's birthdays, because I think everyone would like advance notice of how they're going to spend their dilithium. But June, just a brief rundown of some of the notable ones I picked out. June 1st, we've got Rene Auberjonois. How do you say his last name? Rene Auberjonois. Yeah, and I think he's due to his passing away. Was it early this year or last year? It was early this year, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
I think he will definitely be a feature. And he's got quite a few goals. But on June the 2nd, we also have Anthony Montgomery, who plays Mayweather. We also have Susie. Exactly. Yes. We also have on June the 3rd Susie Plaxon, who people might not pick that one out of the air straight away, but she's actually played quite a few characters in Star Trek, including Miss Q, Kellier, and Lieutenant, is it Tara or Talas?
Salar.
And Dr. Salar.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would love a 5-star version of Dr. Salar. Like I don't know, Susie Plaxton is just good value every time. She's the female Jeffrey Combs, as it were.
Yes.
But no offense to Mr. Combs, but a little nicer to look at.
Yeah.
Good value actor, not to be confused with great value actor. I'm sure the Americans will appreciate that joke.
On 6th of June, we have Jason Isaacs, who played Captain Lorca, and I think the big one, because those lot are in the same week, I think we're more likely to see possibly one of the main cast there. On June 22nd is Tim Russ, and I can guarantee we'll probably see a birthday pack there. And Tuvok does have quite a lot of good variants.
He guaranteed, clip it, folks. If you're on Twitch, clip it. Send it to him on the 22nd.
Legally binding. Yeah, I would actually adore. And it makes sense, because if we've got a before and after Mega coming, and I don't know if we've got any Tuvoks waiting in the wings, but if we do, it would be a prime time to offer a guaranteed shot at some decent variants. Like there's like some duff ones like Bartender and Marquis who are, but Resilient Tuvok I've had my eye on for a little while. Someone who I'd like to cite, and getting a 3rd star would make that easier to justify.
Absolutely.
Now, if they do a Tim Russ pack, and one of the behold options is 3-star EV-Suit Tuvok, we will have enough material to convene an emergency stream.
Could you imagine?
We'll hear the shouting from here.
Unfortunately, I can imagine.
Can you imagine the amount of people said, I was pulling him for ages, but I could get him for one. Oh, okay. Okay.
Feels good, man.
Oh, dear.
So 4 of those being in the same week, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and the 6th. If we get one, I don't think we're likely to get the others, because they seem to be spacing this out once a week.
You don't want to oversaturate this kind of thing. I imagine we'll probably get one a week, depending on like how people's birthdays line up.
It'll be Rene. It'll be Odo, definitely.
I'll be hoping for Susie Plex.
Actually, you know what? Me too.
I'm up for Lorca. I want another Daddy Lorca. I want a chance. Terrible card, but I want them for the art. Guess what? You've had crew for worse reasons, or don't even tell me you haven't.
No. I go by big book tiers. Come on, doesn't everyone?
And now moving on to the gossip column. Guys, no. We're going to move on. We're going to go on to questions. We got a couple of questions this week from Reverend Damar from the stream last week, and from Jorgamond, who has actually given his notice and said, I will see you on the replay. So, Jorg, if you're watching this, this is one for you. We had some questions from Picard Loves Red, but he gave us such a large amount of questions, we felt we might push that one to next week and give him his own lovely little section, because there's quite a lot there. We're actually running for time. Yeah, I think we'll cut for time here. But okay, so first question from Reverend Damar. Does the new show, Strange New Worlds, which is coming up in the next, hopefully, couple of years, does the new show raise the tiers of Pike and Number One?
So we kind of contemplated this question for a little while, And the kind of most pressing cards, like, are obviously the 5-star variants, like Christopher Pike, the kind of the generic Command Dipsec version. He is what he is. Like, I can't really guarantee. I can't really tell you to go for a vanilla card like that just because he's going to get a show in the future. There's going to be other variants. It's hard to say that that's going to be a good guarantee for your investment. But when it came around to Science Officer Spock, we had a kind of a very long conversation about one card. I think it lasted about half an hour to an hour. It was quite a while, which I hope you guys appreciate that. Like with the big book, we don't just sort of like eyeball it and go. We do genuinely sit down and talk about this crew, like one crew for an hour, genuinely, and we feel bad about it afterwards. Not that bad.
Yeah, one down, only 722 to go.
If only we had the time. I do love spending time with you, Water. But we came to a bit of an unorthodox solution for Science Officer Spock, which is we've moved him up half a tier.
That was supposed to be the Easter egg.
No.
The diehard people that print it out and read it in bed with their little nightlight.
You do that, don't you?
Not anymore. I'm better these days. But yeah, so tier 2.5. We promise we won't do it anymore, but we spent so long talking about him. And the reason is we reckon that he is the #1 event crew in all the game for the foreseeable future. The 4-star Discovery variant Fugitive Spock, who I think a lot of people have, he was a free campaign crew, has had 40 event bonuses. And the Gold Science Officer Spock also has 40. So we looked at traits, we look at the shows that they're in, Discovery, Strange New Worlds, which, by the way, a little quirky thing is we assume that both those variants would count for Strange New Worlds, even though they don't come from that show. It is that actor version. So with things like Seeking Spock, and I think there's another movie version, even though they were from a movie, they still count for the original series mega. Mm-hmm. So since it's the Ethan Peck version, they should get any possible Strange New Worlds bonuses. You want to talk about New Eden Pike, I think.
Yes, he was another one that we moved up, just because nice big fat dip base, still quite a good Voyager. And the simple fact of the matter is, I think we moved him down initially because he debuted right alongside Pining Vina. And by comparison, even though it was very cute to have them both together, ultimately they didn't quite fit. Because even though Vina was a slightly worse Voyager, she just had so much of a better skill set. Like she had a slightly better base, med and psi, which is always just a little bit more attractive. And, you know, nothing to say more of like her actual physical proportions. But the simple fact that it's a case of Pike is going to be the leading man of the show, we assume. I don't know how they're going to credit it, but the fact of the matter is Pike is who everyone was pointing at as. I want more of Pike. So if you can get the #1 Pike base, who is also the #4 dip base in the game, that's a good investment. And while in the past it was a case of, is he going to get disco bonuses? What's Pike's situation going to be like after this? The fact that he now has a show, I think, increases his value in a way that, like, you know, if we hadn't had the show, I think you could have seen him slowly climb down. As it is, I think this is an increase in his value.
You say New Eden Pike is the 11th dip base in the game. He has been knocked down quite a lot lately.
Now,
you see him stuck in 2019.
I don't remember. I think he came first and then Vina. And so he came out and he was the new #1 Discovery base. Right, and since we were in the middle of a Discovery Mega, that still meant something. And it may still in the future.
I think, yeah.
So he came out as the #1 dip, and then like 3 weeks later, Vina came. So anyone who chased him for that as the selling point, you know, beware. This is DB we're talking about. So I crunched some numbers for this question because the big book is subjective is a completely valid complaint statement. And it is subjective, but event futures, event performance is certainly a criteria that you should be judging when you look at crew. So a small sample size in mind, I went back and looked at the period when we first knew the characters that were going to be in Star Trek Picard, and if that's affected their event work since then. So I went from October 5th, which I think is when one of the big teaser trailers debuted. I don't know if, I'm sure there's a few leaks before then, but in that teaser we saw Picard, Data, Troy, Seven, and Riker. So I went, and that was about 8 months ago. I went and calculated events before and after. So Picard in the last 8 months has had 0 events. Now he had the Picard in #1 that 4 week, but it was not a variant bonus. So he's had 0. Prior to that, he was averaging 2.7 events per year. So not a bad clip, although I think we would have expected more from Sir Patrick. Troy has had 1 event since then. And so her previous clip was 3 events per year. Since that announcement, it's 1.5 events per year. Data has also only had 1 event per year. That was the Expedition rerun. So I'm sure he used several of his variants for that. Prior to that event, he had 4.2 per year. Since then, 1.5. So a big drop for Data. I think most of his variants picked up work in the Cyberneticist Mega, and that's actually something we talked about when they started to reveal more of the Star Trek Picard plot. We thought, well, they're synths. Will we maybe get android bonuses? Are they going to make a new trait just to screw all the old characters like Ilea Probe that have been waiting for it? So I think Cyberneticist was maybe their attempt at that. Maybe we'll get android or whatever down the line, but in terms of purely varied events, Data has gone steeply downhill. Small sample size, I know.
It's an interesting parallel, sorry to interrupt, an interesting parallel to what people thought would happen with Disco and Picard events, thinking, right, and I did the same thing, so I leveled all my Picards, all my Datas, I put them at a priority, and actually, they've,
Yeah, it surprised me when I started looking at the numbers. Things get a little rosier. 7 of 9 has had 2 events per year, both were half factions. So her clip went from 2.1 per year up to 3 per year. Of course, we're just looking at the last 8 months, but it's still something. And then Riker has had 3 in the last 8 months, which raises this clip from 3.3 to 4.5. And I don't want to necessarily discredit that, but in the 8 months prior to that, he had 4. So he's really been on a tear for the last 1.5 years. Can you really say it's due to Picard or not? But that 1-ish event per year, even if it's not luck, it's still not a big jump. So really, we haven't gotten the jump in variant events that we thought we would out of these characters, at least not more than 1 or 2. So does it affect the tier as well? Not really. They already have to be a good card or have some kind of edge that you're going to want to acquire anyways, and this is sort of a cherry on top. So event futures are tricky. All we have to go on is the randomness that DB provides. But if you're looking specifically at event work, Pike being the star of the show and Spock already being everywhere in Trek, those are really the only 2 names that I would feel safe investing in if you're looking specifically for events.
Yeah, because the only other one that we really sort of like looked at about in Nick is obviously #1, and her variants are obviously away team #1, who we couldn't really justify eking any more value out of. Bridge Officer #1, who is already pretty much an elite dip end Voyager. You don't really need to try and eke more value out of her. And then we sort of looked at Relaxed #1, whose art is a bit more off than you'd like. And we ultimately came to the conclusion that with her in particular, we weren't going to move her up. And we weren't going to move her down, but she was kind of put with a little pin in there for the moment. And it's like a case of the prospect of future events will keep her buoyant, but it will not necessarily improve her value. I would feel better about betting on Pike than I would on #1, but that's kind of my personal hopes mixed in there. As always says, it is absolutely impossible to forecast event futures with any kind of reliability. It's like, rule of Dax. How many events has Dax had in the last year? A lot less than you'd think. A lot less than the public perception would think. And it's a case of, it's the same advice we've been giving. Like, go for traits, go for bases, go for... Yeah. Don't think you know what names will always pop up, because it will surprise you when you look at the numbers.
Excellent. So I think that answers Rev Damar's question. Jorgamund from 10F asks, I would love for y'all to address collections in a more direct manner at some point during your show. And so, just a straight up question asking, if you could just add one collection to the game, what would it be, and what reward for completing it be? Could you also have a second part of the question, addressing the current collections, asking which collections need more tiers, inspiring perhaps, or which collections are missing characters, such as holodeck enthusiasts? Not sure if that's clear, but something I'd be interested in hearing. And thank you to Jorgemund for submitting that question.
Well, thanks for the heads up and telling us we were going to do this question.
I did. I put it in the notes.
Okay.
It was there.
Well, then I'll let Stars go first, and I'm going to type away.
Sorry. It was there. It was there.
I'm going to cheat.
Don't say Klingon. Don't you dare say Klingon. Everyone says Klingon. All right, I'm going first. I want a Klingon.
Yeah, let's think like we could go for the easy answer. So I'm gonna extra double cheat. I'm gonna say Klingon and Mirror are the obvious candidates, and therefore they're stupid and shouldn't be there.
Well,
let's continue. I'm gonna double down on this. Klingon and Mirror are easy. That being said, if they did exist, my prospective reward for a Klingon collection would be a midwife Worf as the ultimate thing, because that would mean he would actually be attainable and he wouldn't be in a six-pack, and that's tailored entirely for me. But listen, Klingon and Mirror are the easy answers. In terms of what collections I would actually want, I think easy answer like stuff like the Killing Game, I think would be a great collection, and it would actually justify having finished some really terrible crew. I think Far Beyond Stars is a really easy candidate, just because again I want baseball Worf. I'm a Worf fan, and I want every variant clutch to my chest like an Oscar. In terms of other variant, something. I think you could possibly pull off maybe something like a E2 collection would be good fun. Something like Lorien, Twilight T'Pol. There's a few crew that you could potentially throw in there. I'm sure I'm mixing my metaphors, but it's a case of Klingon and Mirror easy. Give us weird, obscure collections. I like the weird, obscure ones. Holodeck Enthusiast is my personal favorite collection. And even though Lucille Davenport is not a great card anymore, I'm still gunning for it just because I like the idea of a crew that you can only obtain by this ridiculous jigsaw puzzle of terrible crew.
I like one I saw on the forums the other day in a post I made about most wanted collections, and there was two collections. There was people who had guns pointing down, and there was people who had guns pointing out. So I thought two separate collections, fantastic. And there's quite a surprising amount. I chuckled when I saw that.
It's like a 70 crew threshold collection.
Yeah. What about you, Otto? Now I've taken away Klingon and Mirror. You have to give a proper answer now.
That's okay. That was a bait. I knew you'd go for those. I want a drive collection. Yes, we have Delta Flyer, Kim, Taurus, and Paris. We have Irina. And if they were to add the actual
look at him smile.
You could launch it with 5. I think Age of Sail was launched with like 5, and then the next week they added Worf or something. Yeah. Maybe they're on the same event. Yeah. It was 5 or 6. But I'm sure you could squeeze one more crew out of there. And as a married man who spends a lot of time on his hobbies, I identify with that episode. And so I really want to see a drive-themed collection. And as for which ones get expanded, that's actually something we look at quite a bit for the big book when we are judging crew. We sort of do a touch base, a check-in with how many golds, how many purples you need to complete it every few weeks, because we want to try to judge relative value of collections. So Physician is huge, and I think that tops out at 25. So you could expand that to 60, 80, whatever you want to do, or 40, 60. And then I think of the other stat boosters. I think Veteran was the next easiest one to complete. Jury Rigger was one of the last ones, and actually Diplomat and Inspiring were right underneath that. So I was a little surprised when they expanded Diplomat, because now you need like 25 golds to finish it. But frankly, I just want more collection thresholds, no matter where they come from, because that gives me somewhere to go with my crew, somewhere to go with citations and whatnot. That doesn't involve just, okay, here's the spreadsheet. This guy's ranked higher, I'll go with him. I really like the carrot on the stick of completing collections. So Physician first, but heck, do them all.
Definitely. Thank you, guys. I think we're nearing the end now. We've run quite a fair bit over longer than we would, and we could go on longer, but I think we'll save Picard Loves Reds question for next week. Thank you for submitting it, because it's a big question. We've got a lot to
That's
talk
for the
about.
Patreon tier.
Yes. Stay for the after show. Okay, guys, a little bit of trivia, and I'm going to mix it up this week. I'm going to do something a little bit different, and I haven't told you about it.
Tier 6. The answer is always either
Right,
47 or tier 6.
Yeah. No, I'm going to give you a crew, and I would like you to tell me the tier. Today's crew is Boxer Chakotay.
Oh, God, this is the
You.
I am ashamed to admit
I've read your book. I have read your book.
that you automatically win.
I paid more attention to the greens, honestly, because I was kind of curious, because I had an inkling of idea of what if I created an alt and then I just paid attention to the story of the game and kind of judged how good the writing was. And I was like, who would I need to actually get through the story? And I was like, oh, greens would do this. But I didn't pay that much attention to the blue, so I'm kind of on the same actual even keel as you. Have
a think about the stats. Have a guess.
Is it the same kind of 10-tier scale?
Yes, it's the same kind of 10-tier scale and the same kind of statistics. A bit more leaning towards bases and a bit more sort of leaning towards mission.
Cadet eligibility.
Sorry? And cadet eligibility
yeah,
as well.
That's what I'm thinking. So
exactly.
Right, I'll go first. So it's Boxer Chakotay, yeah?
Boxer Chakotay I'll give you 3. So Boxer Chakotay number 1.
I'm going to guess tier 7.
Oh, that seems a little harsh.
I don't think it counts for any cadets. There's no collections, I don't think.
Now, once upon a time, I think this was before all our times, Boxer Chakotay had a enormous security, and they actually nerfed him, I think, at one point. But no cadet work, no collections. I don't know if you base on build costs. I think with all the Maquis stuff, it might be a little tricky.
Lots of boxing gloves.
I'll give you a hint, not as much.
Oh, okay.
I probably should.
Well,
I need to look at that.
I will go with the Price is Right theme and say tier 6, because if it's above that, I'm closer.
You are closer, but not right. Like he rightly said, he has the number 1 sec for 3-star crew. So I put him at T4 for general early game use. If you grab him and you get him up there, he is gonna nail some sec.
You've opened a whole can of worms now.
Oh, I have. I do need to relook over the big book at some point and kind of go the little book, and kind of go. Actually, right.
It's a big book in your heart.
It is big to me. It's close. It's close here. It's how it got me on the road to the big book. Anyway, CMO Crusher.
Oh, I'm going to say tier 2. Meta's hard to come by. She hits a bunch of the cadet nodes. She's only 1 skill, but,
I'm going to guess tier 3.
Congratulations, Star. She is tier 3. I rate her there. Although, yes, Med is uncommon in the lower ranks. She is strong, but she is not as good as, say, Nurse Kez or some of the others in that rank. But she is a very good early game Med crew. Okay, now let's go for... And I have to tell you, and I'm going to give you a big hint here. I'm going to give you a common card. And the way I rate common cards is they will be no higher than tier 7.
Okay.
Just because. So I'm going to give you...
Got a 25% chance of being right no matter what it is.
Crewman Tarsus.
Okay, well, he's got a bit of med. He counts for Romulan and Vulcan, right?
No, just Romulan.
Does it count? Oh, yeah.
His paternal grandfather was Romulan.
Ah, yes, I see.
With the first link, the chain is forged.
Classic.
Let's do that recap.
if we get Nora Safety, I will absolutely do that.
Can you imagine? Should be like Admiral Clancy, but even less likable.
Shit.
I'm sorry. Are we over our time limit for this week?
A little bit. This will be the last thing.
Yeah, Crewman Tarsus. I'm gonna go again and guess 8.
Yeah, he's male, but he's alien, or part alien, so...
And a bit of med, I feel like that gives him a bit of value.
All right, just so there's a winner, I'll say 9.
Tier 8 stars wins this week. He does have the collection. He is actually the best 1-star med crew, for whatever that's worth. And I'd like to say thank you very much to Auto, to Stars, for guys, for joining me again another week. Thank you to everyone that came in chat, and thank you to the guys that are submitting their questions, and hopefully we will see you again next week. Thank you for another episode.
And apologies for running a little bit over.
A little bit over. That's probably going to be a bit more common going forward because we have a lot to talk about. But thank you guys. Thank you everyone much for coming. Thank you guys. Thank you chat. Thank you everyone. And goodbye.